We're talking about profit squeeze, and inevitably, one of the most important things I think for most business owners to do is to streamline. Because what happens is during good times, we get fat and happy in business and we bulge around the middle. And the reason we do that is because we add resources, we add people, we are profitable. And there's an old saying, good is the enemy of great. And I think for a lot of people in business, they are doing all right during good times. A lot of people sort of did really well during the past 3 years. But then what happens is as soon as the squeeze comes, they're not doing so well. So I'd like to introduce our next presenter, who is going to be talking to the topic of, he's already put his screen up, thank you, conquering the profitability squeeze and how top companies excel in today's environment. So Damien, Lacey, I'm going to hand over to you.
Great. Thank you, David.
Can I see you?
And you can see me and hear me, I'm assuming?
I can hear you. I can see your slides.
Everything's okay? Yep. Great. Thank you, David, and Outcomes Business Group for the chance to speak to you today. Really looking forward to this session. So we'll be talking about conquering the profitability squeeze and how the world's best companies excel even in environments that we're going through right now. So a little bit of a background to who I am and who we are as an organization. So my name is Damien Lacey. I'm the founder of OE Partners. And basically, we exist to improve the productivity of businesses. Mainly Australia, but a little bit of work outside in our near neighbours. So I myself began working with business transformation, productivity improvement programs around 2002, 2003. So I joined automotive supplier Robert Bosch, and they were just beginning their journey around profitability improvement programs, productivity improvement programs. And I started working in the Bosch production system team. So this is the team that was formed to really rethink the operation and challenge the business to do things differently. And that was a really eye-opening experience. And it really kind of got me hooked as to what is possible to achieve in terms of performance in a pretty short time, right? And I've kind of been hooked ever since. Now, a lot of the tools and methods that businesses use around transformation, around productivity improvement programs come from the automotive industry and Toyota in particular. And so I was keen to learn from the source. And so I joined the product development team here in Australia for Toyota. Now, as part of that, for my sins, I was sent to the mothership, back to head office in Toyota City in Japan for, the standard brainwashing. So that was a few years. So a lot of time spent reducing cost on products, on process. How do we get more out of this production line, or how do we get out more cost out of this product? So it was really good, really great experience. Came back to Australia, and I'm sure, like a lot of you know, the auto industry pretty much wound up, right? And so decided to start consulting to Australian businesses, and got really excited. It's like, wow, look at all these businesses. There's so much opportunity for improvement. That sort of led me to found OE Partners, which is just under 7 years now. We've grown to the team that's on the screen now. We work with a range of different companies, big, small, medium, some of the best companies in the world, like Amazon there, and some soon to be best companies in the world, like Ken's Timber and Hardware. Welcome, Guido. Great to see you from today. Broad range of industries, but let's get on with today's topic. So firstly, I wanted to ask a quick question. How much experience do you have with lean business principles or operational excellence principles? If you can just do a quick 1 number score for yourself, 1, 2, or 3. Is this all brand new stuff? Or is it something, got a lot of experience with? Or somewhere in between? It's good to know who we've got in the room. Brian's giving himself a 0. Well, that's a clear definition there. So what? Some 1s and 2s, great. Any 3s there? So maybe the people who've got the 2s and the 3s, and someone's got a business partner with a 3. We can talk about your experiences. That'd be great. So very good. Now, what we're trying to do, and sort of touching on David's point, playing to win, right, as opposed to playing to not lose, we want to challenge the way the business operates and come up with newer, faster, more effective, more cost-effective, more productive ways of working. And, we engage with our teams, right? When we do that, we can hit a couple of hurdles. So firstly, it can be that the people in the business, maybe, ourselves included, can become blind to the waste or the opportunity around improving the business. We're too close to it, as Ben talked to with regards to the marketing. The other challenge is that, look, we deliver change or we deliver some improvements, but they don't really get the outcome. They don't deliver on the target we set for them. Now, first up, we don't want to let perfection be the enemy of the good. In some respects, any change that's registering a win is good. However, we want the arrow to be as close to the bullseye as possible. If we are going to the trouble of, identifying the change or improvement, investing time, investing resources, we'd like to be confident that it'll deliver a great result for the business, right? And a lot of times, customers, they can kick off an improvement initiative, but then the initiative or the change program gets, it fizzles out because we haven't delivered a measurable benefit quick enough, or it's just hasn't been big enough. So I'm going to talk to you about a tool that the best businesses in the world use regularly as a standard practice to really zero in on where the best opportunities to deliver the most significant wins within your business lies. And that's called value stream mapping, so that you can be really effective in what you do to change and improve your business. Also wanted to talk about the idea of temporary improvements versus permanent improvements, right? So, and we can potentially kind of mix the two up. So first of all, let's say, it's been a pretty dynamic period over the last few years. So let's say you had a sudden drop in revenue, okay? And the business cuts overtime, it reduces casuals, it stands down staff, gets people to use annual leave, delays any non-essential purchases. So, you've avoided costs for a certain period of time, right? When conditions return to normal, when revenue returns to what it was, then all those costs come straight back on the P&L, right? You're rehiring staff, you reintroduce the original overhead expenses, and the business runs the way it did before, right? So it's right back where it started, and it's only temporarily avoided cost. And look, on the flip side, it could be that you're experiencing a spike in demand, and not able to keep up. So what do? You throw lots of new labor at the issue. Now, you'll probably have to make those kinds of reactive containment efforts, if you like. However, for the medium to longer term, you also want to consider, really, okay, hang on, why have we got all this overtime and casual labor to begin with, right? What's driving that? Before we go throwing labor at the problem, are there other solutions? So making permanent process improvements will make you more competitive when you get past this initial shock, either up or down. So really thinking about that. So, but where do you find those permanent, significant step change improvements? Well, that's where this tool, value stream mapping, comes in. So, given recent history, a lot of organizations are looking to reset their operations and supply chain, either for growth in general or because they've had to shift what they're doing. So, today I want to talk to you about a really powerful tool used by the best organizations to streamline operations. And I would say it is really a big part of what allows these businesses to be super profitable when compared to the average business. And I use that word specifically, super profitable. So it's called value stream mapping, and businesses use it to analyze their end-to-end processes and find out where to unlock productivity, right? Now, I'm sure being a business leader, let's say you and I, or you and your team, you come up with a list of improvements or changes or things that you could do better, right? You could quickly come up with a list of 30 items, right? Now, I will guarantee that not all of those 30 items that you fixed or changed or improved will deliver a measurable benefit to the bottom line. In fact, I'd say most of them won't, at least not straight away, right? And that's because the changes that you're proposing aren't aligned to where the constraint in the business is. Let's say, it's like a pipe, right? So where's the kink in the pipe? Or if it's a highway, where's the point on the road where the speed limit's the lowest, right? So value stream mapping really allows us to find out where that is, and then target the improvements there. So a lot of businesses we talk to, they can struggle to make significant improvements to the way their businesses operate. Each day is kind of similar to the one before, and it's put down to, well, I don't have the time it takes to implement big changes, right? And I do push back on that. I push back on that a little bit, because what I see is a lot of times businesses have too many things that they want to change and improve, and their time gets spread really thin, and you're not investing in the best initiatives for change. So yeah, what is it? It's a value stream map is a one-page representation of all the processes that are required to create and deliver value in your business for your customers. It looks at the overall organization and everything that happens along the value creation chain. So from the moment you start talking to your customers about an order, all the way through execution, delivery, and invoicing for payment, right? So it's everything in the chain. It maps out all of the important steps, and importantly looks at the data, right? Process performance data. So, cycle times, labor rates, error rates, queues, utilization. So all of the numbers that tell us, hang on, where are the hotspots? Where are we doing things well? And where do we really need to focus our attention? Very good. Okay. So, it's those macro and step change improvements that we're trying to clarify. Very good. All right. Now, with any value stream mapping exercise, it's not just to create a beautiful map and have it up on the wall. It's to identify where waste and opportunity for improvement exists in the value chain, and to eliminate them. But, that word waste, what does that mean? And if I ask probably each one of you, you might come up with a different answer to what waste is. So it's helpful to categorize it and think of it in terms of 3 categories, right? So any activity in your organization can be categorized in one of 3 ways. It's either value adding, as in it's creating the product, or it's delivering the service that you get paid for. The second category is business requirements. So you need to do it to run the business, but your customer doesn't really care about it. So, you're planning your delivery schedule, recruiting new team members, paying your tax bill. You have to do it, but your customer doesn't care, right? They don't care that you recruited in 2 days or 10 days or 20 days. That's your problem, right? And finally, then there's the pure waste. So things like mistakes, errors, scrap, rework, double handling, confirmation, all that kind of stuff. So to really kind of make it crystal clear, if you were to look at a cafe, right? It's a simple, it has its complexities, of course, but from an operational point of view, it's something that we're all familiar with, right? We understand broadly how a cafe works. So a value-adding step in a cafe would be things like we're making the coffee, we're heating the milk, we're adding sugar to the cup, we're assembling the lid on the top, we're delivering the cup to the person's hand. So these are all things that the customer values. They pay for that. The fact that you had to ring suppliers to order stock or arrange next week's roster, they're business requirements and things you're trying to minimize the time it takes. And then there's a pure waste. So getting the order, double confirmation of the order, spilling the sugar, dealing with a breakdown, all those things, a pure waste shouldn't happen, right? Now, to improve the profitability of your organization, it's pretty simple, right? In theory, you can do it in two ways. You can either increase your sales or reduce your costs. And the beautiful thing about waste and elimination, and why I'm so passionate about it, is that it allows you to do both, right? So when you eliminate waste within your organization, you're taking out cost. Let's say it took you 5 hours to do a job, and now you're doing it in 2 hours, right? So those 3 hours are now, you're taking a cost saving, right? It's more cost effective now to produce the job. But then the best thing about it is you've got that time back, which you can then invest in more output. Okay. Now the caveat on that is that you have to have the sales, right, to turn that spare capacity into revenue, right? But if you can do that, you can reduce cost to serve and increase capacity, which increases your sales and really drive your profits, right? And there's a reason why the world's best organizations really focus in on these sorts of principles, use these sorts of tools, is because it delivers them results, right? So it is something to keep in mind to really drive your profits forward. Now, another commonly shocking statistic when we go through this exercise of value stream mapping and identifying, well, what's wasteful, what's not wasteful, et cetera, is that when you go up and you add all the steps, from start to finish and time them, it turns out that on average, about 5% of the time that gets spent within an organization is actually spent value adding, right? I'm going to pause. I'm going to repeat that. Okay. Only 5% of the time that gets spent in your organization on average is creating value. The rest of it is either dealing with business requirements or it's pure waste. Okay. Now that can be daunting and, I get challenged quite regularly. But, having done this exercise so many times, it comes out time and time again, really. Probably a good business, maybe 7 to 8% would be spent value adding. The rest is not. So if you have members of your team or even maybe yourself, you've thought, look, I'm not sure that there's that much difference we can make in terms of the way we operate. We're pretty good. We're pretty efficient. Chances are that, your team has sort of become blind to it, right? So there generally are lots of opportunities to improve a process and unlock that capacity for more productivity. Very good. Now I'll pause there for a second and just sort of finish my coffee and ask a question to you guys. If you had a question or a point that you wanted to confirm or share an anecdote, I'll just leave it there for a second. Although David is just looking at me like, Damien, don't allow dead air. Dead air is the enemy.
You want me to jump in? Dramatic pause. I think you blew a few people's minds on the 95% thing, Damien. Okay. Yep. All right. Well, look, I'm not going to stress the friendship, and we might have a breakout session. So if people have got a question, we can utilize the time there. I just have a comment. Yeah. Because I get excited when you show this because every time I see it, it reminds me how inefficient people really are, even though they think they're efficient. Yeah. And even if it's not 95%, the fact that there's wastage that we can't see is what kills most businesses. And when we work with businesses, our job is to get them to spend time solving these problems. And they come back and say, we're too busy. We don't have time to solve the problems. And it's sort of that cyclic catch-22 where they're going, we're too busy trying to make ends meet to bother stopping. And even like with your pregnant pause, imagine stopping for a day and just saying, let's not do anything today except for analyze the process within our business. And if we only just pull 5 or 10%, it just goes straight to the bottom line. That's it. And I get it. I mean, it's a real concern. You are reluctant to stop and invest time if you're not confident that it will give you a result, right? Yeah. So, and this is why I would recommend that you go through a value stream mapping exercise, right? In that you can be confident that the change you're going to make, the time you're going to invest will deliver you a benefit.
because it's where the pipe is getting kinked. And that's where people lose motivation. It's like, well, I did 3 or 4 different things. I created a procedure. I created a checklist for someone. I put in a new system. Actually didn't make that much of a difference. I didn't think it would, I thought it would make more of a difference. So really having clarity, visibility, and data to tell you where the best changes are, that's what really drives you forward, right? That's what really motivates you. Now, hopefully is my screen showing up there?
Yes, it is.
Good. Okay, great. All right. Well, how about we keep going? And I thought it'd be good, interesting now to talk about some examples of businesses who've done this and the results that they've gotten. Okay. So this stories that we're familiar with because they've been our clients. So a couple of examples here. So we were engaged to help Orcon Steel, one of their distribution centers. They weren't able, at that time, they weren't able to keep up with deliveries. Customers were unhappy. Costs were quite high. So, and the process that they were running itself, it's a combination of manual labor and automation. It ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the customer demand was constantly changing because they were plugged into the building industry, there's seasonality. They had different operations on different shifts, morning, day, and afternoon. And so there was a lot of different theories about what might be causing the bottlenecks and the inefficiencies. But because things are so dynamic, they're changing, not even day to day, even within a day, morning, afternoon, and night, there was just differences in processes. So it was very hard to see where the constraints were, and therefore only incremental changes and incremental improvements had been made. So the really beneficial outcome of the value stream mapping and the data was that we discovered that all of the productivity of the entire operation was pretty much being constrained by one picking station, right? There was one operation in the business that was consistently under the pump, if you like, and where the output was being constrained. It's picking station number 2, right? So material wasn't being supplied properly to that station. The operator was actually being taken away and used on other jobs. Can you help me unload the truck? They would go on break. They wouldn't be covered. There was no sense of urgency around what that station was doing because it wasn't understood that that's where the problem was. Okay. So once we discovered that and we targeted that process, we fixed the material supply issues, made it a rule. That station never stops. We made sure that there was a standard operating procedure there so that it was always up, it was always productive. We invested in some tools and equipment for it. That the results were really significant, right? So delivery improved by 30% and the labor requirements dropped by 27%, okay? And so really knowing where the constraints are over time, because as we looked at this over a 12-month period to really figure out, okay, that's where it is, the results can be really powerful. So that is a sort of an example of where we pinpointed a particular area. Another thing that value stream mapping allows you to do is just to uncover huge amounts of waste and inefficiencies in general, right? So this is another example where we're working with, under confidentiality, an ASX listed company doing prefabricated construction. Now they had a particular product, standard product, that was losing money, right? The more they sold, the more they lost, okay? So in this instance, the value stream mapping wasn't so much about pinpointing a bottleneck, but it was just realizing there was a much better way to run the process and completely redesign the approach. And so the results are pretty significant. So the lead time reduced by 95%. So I think it was so one building used to take them about a week, right? 40 hours of activity, productive activity, to produce one building. We got that down to 2 hours. So instead of doing things in batches, let's do things one at a time. Getting really clear on whose job is to do what. The process doesn't stop; it's always supplied. There's a whole bunch of things, right? So labor requirements dropped by 25% by working more efficiently. And when things take a short amount of time to complete, and you've got more labor, then what happens? Your output increases, right? So the output increased by 2.5 times, and then the profit increased by just under $1 million, right? So that was the classic combination of cost per building reduced, but then the capacity, the extra capacity in the process allowed them to, recover their overheads much better and drove profitability up. So it's worth looking at is probably a key takeaway. It is worth looking at. It will, if you've got the right size organization, you've got, and I would say that would probably be, anything above sort of 5 mil, you would have a good look at this and get some decent results, and sometimes smaller depending on the amount of waste that exists within a business. Now, one question for yourself though. Now, this is a new concept. I think we know that because of the poll that we did at the front. But I will ask you a question there. In terms of getting an end-to-end view of your business, maybe you haven't used the word VSM, maybe you have heard the term VSM, is getting that end-to-end view, is that something you've ever considered, or is that something you're actively considering for your business or the process that you're responsible for? You just do a quick yes or no in the chat there. Wait for those answers to come through. So just give me a yes or no.
Wrapping up, Damien, if you can too.
Yeah, sure thing. So, so some yes, some no's coming in there. Great. So for those of you who answered yes and you're actively thinking about this, so some frequently asked questions, or if you like, some common hurdles that come across. So as you can imagine, we have helped hundreds of organizations utilize value stream mapping and then building productivity programs off the back of it. And so you see what works and you see what doesn't work. And you kind of understand why things don't pan out ahead of time. So for those of you who are really looking at this and interested in embedding this in your business to help you increase your rate of success, we're offering a free half-an-hour strategy and implementation planning session. So this is only to you guys who turned up today to attend the webinar. If that is of interest, go ahead and type in VSM into the chat, and we'll arrange a time and date afterwards to have a chat with you. So what we find is that those of you who are just starting out with value stream mapping, you haven't got it as bedded down as you'd like. They usually have the following questions, right? Should we apply it broadly and widely, or should we do it in a narrow and focused way? How much time should we allocate it to it? How many people needs to be involved? How do we train people on it in the simplest and easiest way? How do we get the leadership team on board, or how do we sell it to the team more broadly? All of those questions, right, will have the answers to those questions will have an impact on how successful your use of value stream mapping will be, right? So, and the thing is as well, the answers will depend on your organization. So how big your organization is, the capability of your team, the type of process that you run, et cetera. They'll all depend on you, right? So to help you answer those questions, that's why we've got the strategy and implementation planning session. So understand where you are, what's a realistic approach, and some high-level steps to help you get there. So if that's of interest, type in VSM into the chat box, because how well you answer those questions will definitely increase your chances of success. Okay. And so, it'd be great to help you with that. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you for that. And David's giving me the wind up. So I better
have the coffee in the middle, right?
I'll leave it there. So thank you for that and look forward to chatting soon.
Great.